Hello, my name is Chad Beebe, and today we're going to be talking about the Guaranteed Transfer Pathways and LAC Assessment. I graduated from Indiana State University by School of Education with my PhD in Curriculum Instruction and Media Technology. After completing my PhD, I moved to Colorado last September to work here at UNC as Assessment Director. Prior to coming to UNC, I worked for 14 years in higher education as an associate professor and then as assessment director for Vincennes University. And since arriving at UNC, part of my job has been as a member of the LAC to develop a process to assess UNC's general education outcomes. So what is GT Pathways? It's the outcome structure that shapes UNC's liberal education curriculum and is Colorado's Guaranteed Transfer Pathways outcome structure. This outcome structure, called Guaranteed Transfer Pathways, are informed by the Liberal Education in America's Promise, that is the LEAP initiative, Essential Learning Outcomes, which began in 2005 up to the present, which sought to design and promote continual improvement of an inclusive and coherent liberal education. The rubrics for the Guaranteed Transfer Pathways are informed by the AAC&U VALUE, V-A-L-U-E, standing for Valid Assessments of Learning in Undergraduate Education. These rubrics were developed in 2007 to 2009 by faculty across the United States to define the knowledge and skills gained from a liberal education and provide a framework to guide students' cumulative progress and encourage the authentic assessment of student work. The GT Pathways general education paradigm is built on these essential learning outcomes. They're called the GT Pathways Competencies in this framework, and they're embedded in content curricula distributed across the general education curriculum. Last updated in 2016, the GTP outcomes and associated rubrics were a product of collaboration of faculty, assessment directors, and assistants from the Association of American Colleges and Universities, Liberal Education in America's Promise project. The GTP ensures that students completing courses meeting the essential outcomes will transfer across public institutions of higher education in the state. GT Pathways courses in which a student earns at least a C- or a higher grade will, quote, always transfer and apply to GT Pathways requirements in AA, AS, and most bachelor's degrees at every public Colorado college and university. GT Pathways does not apply to some degrees, such as engineering, computer science, nursing, and others, which have some carve-outs. The Colorado Department of Higher Education lists 3 significant factors for the revision work conducted on GT Pathways in 2016. The first is the collaborative approach of state institutions of higher education to work on and revise those outcomes. Second, the necessary updates to improve student learning outcomes and the ability to assess them. And 3, alignment with national initiatives for improving transfer within and out of state, and the ability to benchmark with respect to assessment of student learning. The outcomes that the Colorado Department of Higher Education of the GT Pathways project include enhanced student learning, transfer, persistence, and completion, and the faculty can count on students being proficient in key general education competencies and content. These robust competencies with rubrics allow for reliable assessment of student learning. They provide a tool for designing assessments and help institutions meet their assessment goals for reaccreditation. A citizenry with proficiencies in these competencies are good citizens, skilled workforce, which improves a robust economy and provides benefits for all, according to the Colorado Department of Higher Education. The GT Pathways matrix of required content criteria and competencies include written communication, oral and presentational communication, quantitative literacy, information literacy, problem solving, creative thinking, critical thinking, civic engagement, diversity and global learning, and inquiry and analysis. Each of these competencies consists of 5 to 6 learning outcomes. These learning outcomes and their components comprise the rubric criteria. These competencies are distributed across 6 general education content areas: written communication, mathematics, the arts and humanities, history, social and behavioral sciences, and the natural and physical sciences. Concerning assessment of LAC courses, The GT Pathways competencies will be assessed in the liberal arts curriculum on a 6-year cycle, 1 year for each of the 6 GTP content areas. LAC courses have already illustrated the GT Pathways alignment via required language and learning outcomes mapping in syllabi, which is necessary for approval into the LAC. Each content area will assess the required competencies in the courses designated as LAC courses. UNC must assess all of the required outcomes of each competency in the applicable courses using 1 or more aligned assignments. In the 22-23 academic year, the LAC committee voted to use the GT Pathways rubrics. The outcomes are embedded in Canvas. This will allow for institutional-wide application and data collection. Faculty will use Canvas to assess the aligned outcomes using the outcomes and rubric for all students completing the aligned assignments in an LAC course. The 22-23 academic year was the pilot year, piloted by the History and Mathematics departments for critical thinking and quantitative literacy. Year 1 of full implementation will be the 23-24 academic year in the Natural and Physical Sciences, and they will assess quantitative literacy and inquiry and analysis outcomes. Note that lecture lab pairings may assess the GTP competencies in either a lab section or the lecture section. To be considered an LAC course in the Natural and Physical Sciences, lecture content of a GT Pathways Science course, either GT/SC1 or GT/SC2, students should be able to A, develop foundational knowledge in specific fields of science, B, develop an understanding of the nature and process of science, C, demonstrate the ability to use scientific methodologies, D, examine quantitative approaches to study natural phenomena. In laboratory, either a combined lecture lab or a separate lab tied to a science lecture course, content of a GT Pathways Science course, GT/SC1, students should be able to A, perform hands-on activities with demonstration and simulation components playing a secondary role, B, engage in inquiry-based activities, C, demonstrate the ability to use the scientific method, D, obtain and interpret data and communicate the results of inquiry, and E, demonstrate proper technique and safe practice. These are the requirements for a natural and physical science course to be considered an LAC GT Pathways course that has those GT competencies embedded. Thank you. I hope this has been informative concerning the origin of the GT Pathways Outcomes Framework and its connection to the LAC assessment.